6 million tons, 481 foot high, 13-acre footprint, this massive thing. And archaeologists are saying it's just the tomb of a pharaoh.
My theory is that ramps don't do it. No gang of workers can haul a 20-ton block up a slope that's steeper than 10 degrees. What it found was a door, a little stone door with two metal handles blocking the shaft. So the question is, what lies beyond that door?
I mean, it's going to be a lot more energetic than now. I mean, imagine your sea level rising at 3 or 4 times at least faster than we've seen rise in the last century. And you're talking about a very energetic intertidal zone. And anything that's there, short of large megalithic blocks, is going to be utterly obliterated.
When you take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, you get the polar radius of the Earth.
We find that the constellation of Orion is sitting due south on the meridian with its 3 belt stars in the same pattern as the 3 Great Pyramids on the ground.
Amongst the tasks that the Great Pyramid serves is fundamentally a spiritual task, that this is fundamentally a piece of spiritual machinery that we're looking at here.
It's doing something on a scale that no one is doing 4,500 years ago. That scale is insane. They found it. For decades, the so-called experts have dismissed my work, patronized my theories, and called me a purveyor of fantasy. They built their careers on the comfortable story that the Great Pyramid was merely a tomb for a vainglorious pharaoh. Well, last week, a team using advanced sonic resonance technology, the very frequencies the builders themselves may have used, managed to unlock one of the sealed doors deep within the Queen's chamber. They didn't find gold or sarcophagi. They found something infinitely more valuable, a single, flawless, crystalline sphere suspended in a vacuum field. And when they introduced the correct resonant frequency, a sound they synthesized from the acoustic properties of the King's chamber itself, the sphere activated. It projected a perfect 3-dimensional hologram of our solar system as it was 12,800 years ago. We watched as it depicted the catastrophic event, the serpent from the sky our ancestors warned us about, a swarm of cometary fragments striking the Earth. But it didn't stop there. The projection then accelerated through the millennia, charting the slow, deliberate wobble of our planet's axis, the great cycle of precession. And it pinpointed another celestial encounter, a warning. This sphere is not just an artifact, it's a machine. It's a time capsule containing the blueprint of a lost science based on harmonics and consciousness that could manipulate the very fabric of reality. The pyramid was never a tomb. It was a shelter, a library, and an astronomical instrument of unimaginable power, built to preserve a terrible warning across the ages. The proof is no longer just in the stone or the stars. It is now a tangible, functioning piece of technology from a past far more advanced than our own. So I ask the archaeologists, I ask the experts, how will you dismiss this? The pyramid has finally spoken. Are we ready to listen?
What if everything you've been taught about the pyramids is wrong? What if these magnificent structures aren't just ancient tombs built by pharaohs with primitive tools, but something far more extraordinary? What if they're actually remnants of a lost advanced civilization that possessed knowledge we're only beginning to rediscover today? Standing on the Giza Plateau, gazing up at the Great Pyramid, you're looking at one of the most enigmatic structures ever created by human hands. 6 million tons of precisely cut stone, rising 481 feet into the Egyptian sky, aligned almost perfectly to true north with an accuracy that would challenge modern engineers. This isn't just impressive, it's impossible according to everything we understand about ancient Egyptian capabilities.
So standing in front of the Great Pyramid of Egypt is an awe-inspiring experience, especially when you've never seen it before. 6 million tons, 481 foot high, 13-acre footprint, this massive thing, and archaeologists are saying it's just the tomb of a pharaoh, and yet no pharaoh's body was ever found inside it.
The Great Pyramid has been studied for over 150 years by the world's leading archaeologists and engineers. yet we still have no satisfactory explanation for how it was built. There are dozens of theories, from elaborate ramp systems to sophisticated pulley mechanisms, but none of them can account for the precision, the scale, or the sheer impossibility of what we see before us. Consider this: the pyramid is aligned to true north, south, east, and west within 3/60ths of a single degree. That's not just impressive. That's a level of precision that requires advanced astronomical knowledge and surveying techniques. The base perimeter covers exactly 13 acres. Each side is approximately 750 feet long. And here's where it gets truly mysterious. When you take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, you get the polar radius of the Earth. When you measure the base perimeter and multiply it by that same number, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. This isn't coincidence. The number 43,200 isn't random. It's derived from one of the most sophisticated astronomical phenomena known to ancient peoples, the precession of the equinoxes. This is the slow wobble of Earth's axis that takes 25,920 years to complete a full cycle. The rate of change is 1 degree every 72 years, and 43,200 is exactly 600 times 72. This number appears in mythologies and architectural measurements all around the world, from the 432,000 syllables in the Rig Veda to the 72 conspirators in the myth of Osiris.
If you think about how do we measure the length of one orbit, 24 hours, times 60 means there's 86,400 seconds on the moment of vernal equinox. The period of time of darkness and of light are exactly equal. 43,200. That number is the scaling ratio of the pyramid.
The Great Pyramid isn't just a tomb, it's a scale model of our planet, built using mathematical relationships derived from the Earth's own movements through space. This suggests a level of astronomical and mathematical knowledge that mainstream archaeology insists didn't exist until thousands of years later. But the mysteries don't stop with the Great Pyramid's external dimensions. The internal structure is equally baffling. Using cutting-edge scanning technology, researchers have recently discovered enormous voids within the pyramid that were previously unknown. There's what appears to be a second grand gallery above the first, and multiple chambers that have never been accessed by human beings since the pyramid was completed over 4,000 years ago.
So it's amazing that they're still finding new things there. For example, there's been using a high-tech scanning equipment, muon scanning, I believe. Just in the last 3 years, enormous cavities have been identified within the Great Pyramid, which nobody knew were there. There's a huge feature called the Grand Gallery, and it looks like there's another Grand Gallery above it.
The so-called Queen's Chamber contains 2 narrow shafts, only 8 inches square, that extend deep into the body of the pyramid. When robots were sent up these shafts in the 1990s, they discovered something extraordinary. After traveling more than 160 feet, they encountered small stone doors with copper handles. When researchers drilled through the first door, they found another chamber and another door beyond that. The pyramid is literally inviting us to explore it, setting up a series of puzzles and challenges that we're only now beginning to solve. Then there are the massive granite blocks that form the roof of the King's Chamber. These blocks, each weighing about 70 tons, came from quarries 500 kilometers to the south and somehow had to be transported to Giza and then lifted 300 feet into the air. Above the King's Chamber are 5 additional chambers called the relieving chambers, each also roofed with 70-ton granite blocks. That's an enormous collection of massive stones suspended hundreds of feet in the air with a precision that modern construction would find challenging.
The specific example I give is above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid are 5 further chambers. And these chambers are roofed and floored with granite beams that weigh about 70 tons each. These 70-ton granite beams have been elevated to a height of more than 350 feet above the ground.
The conventional explanation involves ramps, wet sand, and teams of workers hauling these massive blocks with ropes. But consider the logistics. To carry blocks to the top of the Great Pyramid using a ramp system, you would need a ramp extending more than a mile into the desert at a 10-degree slope, the steepest gradient that human labor could manage. That ramp would have to be built almost as solidly as the pyramid itself, to bear the weight of multi-ton blocks. Yet there's no trace of such a ramp anywhere on the Giza Plateau.
My theory is that ramps don't do it. If you have a straight ramp, if it's going to carry blocks right up to what will be the top of the Great Pyramid, you're looking, no gang of workers can haul a 20-ton block up a slope that's steeper than 10 degrees. So you're looking at a ramp which is going to extend roughly a mile out into the desert.
The spiral ramp theory suggests the ramp wound around the pyramid as it was being built. But this creates its own problems. How do you get blocks around the corners? How do you maintain structural integrity? How do you align the outer casing stones when your reference points are blocked by the ramp itself? None of these theories adequately explain what we see, but perhaps the most intriguing mystery isn't how the pyramids were built, but when. Mainstream Egyptology dates the Great Pyramid to around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. This dating is based on a single piece of graffiti found in one of the relieving chambers by a British adventurer named Howard Vyse in the 1830s. This graffiti, supposedly left by workers, contains the cartouche of Khufu, but there are serious questions about its authenticity. Vyse was in desperate financial straits and needed to make a significant discovery to fund his expeditions. He used dynamite to blast his way into the relieving chambers. Hardly the careful archaeological technique we'd expect today. The graffiti was found in a chamber that no one had entered since the pyramid was sealed, yet it appears to be painted on rather than carved, and it contains errors that suggest it was added by someone not entirely familiar with ancient Egyptian writing conventions.
In the top of these 5 chambers, a British adventurer and vandal called Howard Vyse, who dynamited his way into those chambers in the first place, allegedly found, the graffiti, a piece of graffiti left by a work gang naming the pharaoh Khufu. But the dispute around it is whether that is a genuine piece of graffiti or whether Howard Vyse actually put it there himself because he was in desperate need of money at the time.
The only other evidence connecting the Great Pyramid to Khufu comes from the Wadi al-Jarf papyri, which mention bringing polished limestone to the Great Pyramid during Khufu's reign. But these papyri clearly refer to the outer casing stones, not the massive core structure of the pyramid itself. It's entirely possible that Khufu was involved in completing or restoring the pyramid rather than building it from scratch. This possibility becomes more intriguing when we consider the Great Sphinx, which sits just a few hundred yards from the Great Pyramid. According to conventional Egyptology, the Sphinx was carved during the 4th dynasty, around the same time as the pyramids. But there's compelling evidence that the Sphinx is much, much older. The key evidence comes from geology. The Sphinx sits in a rectangular trench carved out of the bedrock, and the walls of this trench show distinctive weathering patterns. These aren't the gradual erosion marks you'd expect from wind and sand, but deep vertical fissures and scalloped profiles that are characteristic of water erosion, specifically erosion caused by thousands of years of heavy rainfall.
Dr. Robert Schoch's assertion that when you look at the Temple of the Sphinx, you're dealing with thousands of years of water erosion. Yes. And the last time there was water like that in the Nile Valley was when? The last time you had water erosion like that in the Nile Valley was precisely during the Younger Dryas.
The Giza Plateau receives very little rainfall today, and it received very little rainfall 4,500 years ago when the Sphinx is supposed to have been carved. But if you go back 12,000 years, you find yourself in a completely different climate period. This was the end of the last ice age, when the Sahara Desert was green and fertile, receiving heavy seasonal rains. This is the only period in recent geological history when the Giza Plateau would have experienced the kind of rainfall necessary to create the weathering patterns we see on the Sphinx. Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, has studied these erosion patterns extensively and concluded that the Sphinx shows evidence of exposure to at least 1,000 years of heavy rainfall. His analysis suggests the Sphinx was carved no later than 10,500 BCE, making it more than 12,000 years old. This dating is supported by astronomical evidence. The Sphinx faces due east and is aligned to catch the rising sun at the spring equinox, when day and night are of equal length. But the real clue comes from understanding what constellation rose behind the sun at dawn on the spring equinox when the Sphinx was built. Due to the precession of the equinoxes, that slow wobble of Earth's axis, the constellation that houses the sun on the spring equinox changes over time. Today it's Pisces, which is why early Christianity adopted the fish as its symbol. 2,000 years ago, during the height of ancient Egypt, it was Aries, which explains the ram-headed sphinxes that line the approaches to Egyptian temples. But 12,500 years ago, it was Leo, the lion.
The Great Sphinx, an equinoctial monument, aligned perfectly to the rising sun on the spring equinox. But the question is, what constellation was behind the Sphinx? And 12,500 years ago, it was the constellation of Leo, and I and my colleagues are pretty sure that the Sphinx was originally a lion entirely.
If you were an ancient astronomer building a monument to mark the spring equinox 12,500 years ago, you would naturally build it in the shape of a lion because that's the constellation that would rise behind the sun at dawn on that crucial date. The Sphinx isn't just aligned to the equinox, it's aligned to the age of Leo. This presents a fascinating possibility. What if the Sphinx in its original form was indeed a lion monument built 12,500 years ago, and the human head we see today is the result of later recarving? Look closely at the proportions of the Sphinx, and you'll notice something odd. The head is too small for the body. If this were originally designed as a human-headed monument, the proportions would be more balanced. But if it were originally a lion that had its head recarved in pharaonic times, the proportions make perfect sense. The head of the Sphinx would have been the part most exposed to erosion over thousands of years. By the 4th dynasty, when the pharaohs were building the pyramids, the original lion head would have been severely weathered and damaged. It would make sense for them to recarve it into the head of a pharaoh, giving us the monument we see today. This reconstruction of history isn't just speculation, it's supported by ancient Egyptian texts. The Egyptians themselves spoke of a time called Zep Tepi, the first time when the gods walked the earth. This was when 7 sages brought wisdom to Egypt and established the foundations of Egyptian civilization. There are king lists that extend back 30,000 years into this mythical past, describing dynasties of gods and demigods who ruled before the historical pharaohs. Mainstream Egyptology dismisses these accounts as myth, but what if they contain genuine historical memory? What if the Giza complex was built during Zep Tepi and later restored and expanded by the pharaohs of the 4th dynasty?
So it's interesting that the ancient Egyptians have a notion of an epoch that they call Zep Tepi, which is the first time. It means the first time. This is when the gods walked the earth. This is when 7 sages brought wisdom to ancient Egypt. And that is seen as the origin of ancient Egyptian civilization.
This would explain many of the anomalies we see. It would explain why the Great Pyramid shows such sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. It would explain why the internal passages and chambers seem designed to challenge and educate future explorers rather than simply house a burial. It would explain why no pharaoh's body was ever found in any of the Great Pyramids, despite extensive exploration. The evidence suggests that the Giza complex wasn't built as a tomb, but as something much more sophisticated, a kind of ancient university or initiation center designed to preserve and transmit advanced knowledge across vast spans of time. Consider the internal geometry of the Great Pyramid. Every passageway slopes at exactly 26 degrees, which is precisely half the external slope of 52 degrees. The dimensions incorporate the mathematical relationship known as the golden ratio. The shaft from the king's chamber points to the star Orion, while the shaft from the queen's chamber points to Sirius. These aren't random orientations. They're precise astronomical alignments that would have served as star maps for ancient observers. The Great Pyramid is literally a 3-dimensional textbook of advanced mathematics and astronomy, built from 6 million tons of stone and designed to last for millennia. It's a monument that speaks to us across vast spans of time, using the universal language of mathematics and the movements of celestial bodies. But if the pyramids weren't built by the pharaohs using primitive tools and manual labor. Who built them and how? This brings us to one of the most controversial aspects of alternative pyramid theories, the question of advanced technology. When we say advanced, we need to be very careful about what we mean. We're not talking about ancient Egyptians with iPhones and helicopters. We're talking about a different kind of advancement, one that might have developed along completely different lines from our own.
Well, that's precisely the possibility that I think we're looking at. I think that there was a higher level of technology, particularly in shipbuilding, than is supposed to have existed. Navigation, exploration of the world, longitude, precise astronomy that is not supposed to have been discovered until the time of the Greeks, but which was present during the Ice Age.
Consider what we know about ancient acoustics. The Great Pyramid has remarkable acoustic properties. Sounds made in certain chambers resonate in specific ways. The entire structure seems designed to amplify and focus sound in particular frequencies. Ancient Egyptian traditions speak repeatedly of priests singing massive stone blocks into place, using sound to lift and move objects that would otherwise require enormous mechanical force.
In ancient Egypt, in ancient Egyptian myth and tradition, there are traditions of priests singing blocks, singing megaliths into place, huge blocks of stone being raised up into the sky by priests chanting. And I just wonder whether that's some faint memory passed down over the millennia of some kind of sonic technology that may have been used to lift blocks.
This might sound like fantasy, but modern science has discovered that sound can indeed manipulate matter. Acoustic levitation is a real phenomenon that can suspend small objects in midair using nothing but precisely tuned sound waves. Cymatics, the study of sound frequencies and their effects on matter, shows us that specific frequencies can create complex geometric patterns in sand, water, and other materials. What if the ancient Egyptians understood acoustic principles that we're only beginning to rediscover? What if they developed techniques for using sound to move and shape massive stone blocks? This would explain the precision of the cuts, the perfect fitting of blocks, and the seemingly impossible transport and placement of multi-ton stones. The acoustic theory isn't just speculation. The Great Pyramid's chambers are designed with specific proportions that would create resonant frequencies. The granite used in the king's chamber contains high levels of quartz, which has piezoelectric properties. It generates electrical current when subjected to pressure or vibration. The entire structure might have functioned as a kind of acoustic machine, capable of generating specific frequencies and focusing them in precise ways. Ancient traditions from around the world contain similar references to the use of sound in construction. Tibetan monks speak of using sound to move stones. Native American traditions describe similar techniques. The walls of Jericho were supposedly brought down by sound. What if these aren't just mythological stories, but distorted memories of actual technologies? This brings us to another intriguing possibility, the role of consciousness and human potential in ancient building techniques. Modern science is beginning to recognize that consciousness isn't just a byproduct of brain activity, but may be a fundamental aspect of reality itself. Quantum physics suggests that observer consciousness plays a role in shaping physical reality at the most fundamental level. What if ancient civilizations understood this relationship between consciousness and matter? What if they developed techniques for using focused mental energy to accomplish what we consider impossible? This might sound far-fetched, but consider the well-documented abilities of certain individuals to influence physical systems through mental focus alone. Studies of psychokinesis have shown that some individuals can influence random number generators, affect the growth of plants, and even cause small objects to move without physical contact. While these effects are typically small and inconsistent, they suggest that the relationship between consciousness and physical reality is more complex than our materialist worldview assumes. Ancient Egyptian culture was deeply focused on the development of consciousness. Their entire religious and philosophical system was based on the idea that human consciousness could transcend normal limitations and achieve godlike abilities. The pharaoh wasn't just a political ruler, but was considered to be a god in human form, possessing supernatural abilities. What if this wasn't just religious symbolism, but reflected actual training in the development of extraordinary human capabilities? capabilities? What if the pyramid-building civilization understood how to develop and focus human consciousness in ways that could influence physical reality? This would explain why the pyramids seem to have been built not just as monuments, but as initiation centers, places where individuals could be trained in the development of these extraordinary abilities. The internal passages, with their precise astronomical alignments and acoustic properties, might have been designed as consciousness development laboratories. The Great Pyramid's internal structure supports this interpretation. The ascending passage leads through increasingly narrow and challenging spaces, culminating in the Grand Gallery, a magnificent corbelled chamber nearly 30 feet high. This isn't just a passageway, it's a ceremonial space designed to inspire awe and create a specific psychological state in those who enter it.
Look, I mean, was it
Christopher Dunn?
Was it Obama who said that he could walk and chew gum at the same time? And the reason I'm citing that is maybe the pyramids are more than one thing. You know, maybe they're not just one thing. There's a lot of possibilities, and the Great Pyramid is
The King's Chamber, at the end of this journey, contains a granite sarcophagus that's too large to have been brought in through the passages. It must have been placed there during construction, suggesting it was always intended to be a permanent fixture rather than a burial container. The chamber's dimensions create specific acoustic resonances, and its granite walls contain high levels of quartz crystal. Rather than a tomb, the King's Chamber appears to be an initiation chamber, a place where individuals underwent some kind of consciousness-altering experience. The journey through the pyramid's passages would have been a kind of pilgrimage, preparing the initiate for whatever transpired in that final chamber. This interpretation is supported by the pyramid's relationship to the constellation Orion. In ancient Egyptian mythology, Orion represented Osiris, the god of death and rebirth. The entire Osiris myth is about the transformation of consciousness through death and resurrection. The three pyramids of Giza are laid out in the same pattern as the three stars of Orion's belt, but not as they appeared when the pyramids were supposedly built. They match the pattern of Orion as it appeared 12,500 years ago, the same date indicated by the Sphinx's alignment to the constellation Leo.
We find that the constellation of Orion is sitting due south on the meridian with its three belt stars in the same pattern as the three great pyramids on the ground. In 2500 BC, they were in the wrong orientation. 10,500 BC, they're in the right orientation. And I'm just asking, are we looking at the date stamp of Zep-Tepi the first time, written in the astronomical language of precession?
This suggests that the Giza complex was designed as a three-dimensional map of the sky at a specific moment in time, a moment that was apparently of crucial importance to its builders. But why that particular date? What happened 12,500 years ago that was so significant it needed to be memorialized in 6 million tons of stone? The answer may lie in one of the most catastrophic periods in human history, the Younger Dryas period, which lasted from approximately 12,800 to 11,600 years ago. This was a time of dramatic global cooling, mass extinctions, and enormous environmental upheaval. All the great megafauna of the Ice Age, mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, giant ground sloths, disappeared during this period. Human populations were severely stressed, and many cultures vanished entirely from the archaeological record.
The Younger Dryas begins 12,800 years ago with a cataclysm, with a puzzling, mysterious rise in sea level at the same point, 1,000 years of freezing temperatures, mass extinctions of animal species all over the world, and then 11,600 years ago, global temperature shoots up. The last of the ice caps collapse into the sea level rises enormously. That is the date that work starts at Göbekli Tepe, and it's a point I've made many times, but it's really worth making because archaeologists roll their eyes every time you say the word Atlantis.
Recent scientific research suggests that the Younger Dryas was triggered by a cosmic impact event, possibly fragments from a disintegrating comet that struck Earth's ice sheets and caused rapid climate change. This theory, known as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, is supported by evidence of impact markers found in sediment layers around the world dating to approximately 12,800 years ago. These markers include nanodiamonds, shocked quartz, carbon spherules, and other materials that can only be created by the intense heat and pressure of a cosmic impact. The same kinds of evidence that led scientists to identify the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. If this impact hypothesis is correct, then 12,800 years ago, Earth was struck by multiple fragments of a disintegrating comet. These impacts would have caused massive wildfires, tremendous flooding as ice sheets rapidly melted, and a subsequent period of global cooling as debris in the atmosphere blocked sunlight. This would have been truly an apocalyptic period, a time when human civilization as it existed was largely destroyed, but some groups would have survived, and these survivors might have possessed advanced knowledge that they were desperate to preserve for future generations. The Giza complex might represent the efforts of these survivors to encode their knowledge in the most durable way possible, in massive stone monuments aligned to astronomical patterns that would allow future civilizations to decode their message. The date memorialized in the alignments, 12,500 years ago, might mark not the construction of the monuments, but the catastrophe that made their construction necessary. This interpretation is supported by flood myths found in cultures around the world. Nearly every ancient culture has traditions of a great flood that destroyed a previous civilization. The story of Noah's Ark is probably the most familiar, but similar accounts are found in Mesopotamian, Hindu, Greek, Native American, and countless other traditions.
Yeah, one of the world's best-known flood myths also comes from the Bible, which is the flood of Noah, which again is part of this worldwide tradition, of which I am absolutely convinced Atlantis should be understood as a part of that worldwide tradition of a global flood and the loss of a former civilization.
Mainstream archaeology tends to dismiss these as either coincidence or distorted memories of local flooding events, but the consistency of the accounts, particularly the dating, which consistently places the flood around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, suggests they might preserve genuine historical memory of global catastrophe. The most detailed of these accounts comes from Plato's story of Atlantis. According to Plato, this information came from Egyptian priests who told the Greek lawmaker Solon about a great civilization that existed on an island in the Atlantic Ocean. This civilization became corrupt and aggressive, eventually provoking the wrath of the gods, who destroyed it in a single day and night of catastrophic flooding. The date given for this destruction is very specific, 9,000 years before Solon's visit to Egypt in 600 BCE. That places the destruction of Atlantis at 9,600 BCE, or 11,600 years ago. This corresponds almost exactly to the end of the Younger Dryas period and the massive sea level rise known as Meltwater Pulse 1b.
One of the only ones which actually gives a date. And it gives that date because the Egyptian priests who read the hieroglyphs on the wall of the temple of Neith at Sais in the Delta to Solon and translated it for him, when he asked them, when did this happen? When did this place get destroyed? When was it submerged beneath the sea? They kind of matter-of-factly said, 9,000 years ago.
If Plato simply made up this date, it's remarkable that it coincides so precisely with what modern geology tells us was one of the most dramatic episodes of sea level rise in human history. Islands and coastal civilizations around the world would indeed have been swallowed by the sea at exactly this time. The Atlantis account might not be pure mythology, but a distorted memory of actual historical events. A maritime civilization that existed during the Ice Age, when sea levels were 400 feet lower than today, would have been concentrated along coastlines that are now underwater. The rapid sea level rise at the end of the Younger Dryas would have submerged vast areas of previously inhabited land. Today, 27 million square kilometers of continental shelf lie beneath the oceans, areas that were dry land during the Ice Age and potentially habitable by advanced civilizations. Marine archaeology has barely scratched the surface of these submerged lands. We've explored less than 5% of the ocean floor in any detail, and even less of the shallow continental shelves where evidence of ancient civilization would most likely be found. The absence of archaeological evidence for advanced Ice Age civilizations might simply reflect the fact that we're looking in the wrong places. If these civilizations were primarily maritime and coastal, their remains would now lie beneath hundreds of feet of water, covered by thousands of years of marine sediment. This brings us back to the mystery of ancient maps that show remarkable knowledge of world geography, including accurate depictions of Antarctica. These maps, known as portolans, began appearing in Europe in the 13th and 14th centuries, but they were always described as copies of much older source maps.
Archaeologists wouldn't argue that the Egyptians had boats, but that is still within the framework of accepted history. It's the notion of a global navigating culture in the Ice Age that archaeologists can't swallow. It's a subject that I've
kept on coming up against over a number of years. I think the best evidence for it is ancient maps, which show the world as it looked during the last ice age.
The most famous is the Peary Race map of 1513, which shows the coastlines of South America and Africa with remarkable accuracy, as well as what appears to be the northern coast of Antarctica. The mapmaker explicitly states that he based his map on more than 20 older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Other Portolan maps show similar features, accurate relative longitudes that shouldn't have been possible before the invention of the marine chronometer in the 18th century, and depictions of land masses as they existed during the Ice Age rather than in medieval times. The Oronteus Phineus map of 1531 shows Antarctica with remarkable detail, including mountain ranges and rivers that wouldn't be discovered by modern explorers until the 20th century. The continent is shown in approximately the correct position and with roughly the correct shape, despite the fact that Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. These maps suggest that someone was exploring and mapping the world during the Ice Age, when Antarctica was less ice-covered and therefore more accessible to exploration. The knowledge preserved in these maps was apparently passed down through various copies and translations over thousands of years, eventually reaching medieval European mapmakers. The implications are staggering. If accurate, these maps represent evidence of a global civilization that existed during the Ice Age, a civilization with sophisticated navigation techniques and worldwide exploration capabilities. This civilization would have had to possess knowledge of longitude calculation that our own civilization didn't develop until the 18th century. The ability to calculate longitude requires either extremely accurate timekeeping or sophisticated astronomical knowledge. Ancient mariners would have had to track the precise movements of celestial bodies and use complex mathematical calculations to determine their position on the Earth's surface. This suggests not just advanced navigation, but advanced astronomy and mathematics, the same kinds of advanced knowledge that appear to be encoded in the dimensions and alignments of the Great Pyramid. We're looking at evidence of a scientific tradition that understood the Earth as a sphere, mapped its surface with remarkable precision, and encoded fundamental mathematical and astronomical knowledge in massive stone monuments designed to last for millennia. But this raises another crucial question. If such an advanced civilization existed, what happened to it? Why don't we find more obvious traces of their technology and achievements? The answer may lie in the nature of the catastrophe that ended the Ice Age. The Younger Dryas wasn't just a period of climate change. It was a time of unprecedented destruction. The cosmic impacts that likely triggered this period would have caused massive wildfires, devastating tsunamis, and rapid environmental change on a global scale.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot more energetic than now. I mean, imagine your sea level rising at 3 or 4 times at least faster than we've seen rise in the last century. And within there, juxtaposed, are these episodes of very rapid sea level rise. So you're talking about a very energetic intertidal zone. And anything that's there, short of large megalithic blocks, is going to be utterly obliterated by the time the process is through.
Any civilization dependent on coastal locations would have been particularly vulnerable. Rising sea levels would have submerged their cities and ports. Massive flooding would have scoured away their settlements. The survivors would have been refugees, scattered to highland areas and forced to start over with whatever knowledge they could preserve. This is exactly the scenario described in flood myths around the world. Survivors of a great catastrophe taking refuge among less advanced peoples, bringing with them fragments of advanced knowledge that gradually became incorporated into local traditions and eventually gave rise to the first historical civilizations. The pyramid builders might have been these survivors, or their immediate descendants. The precision and sophistication of their work suggests they weren't starting from scratch, but were drawing on a much older tradition of advanced knowledge. The internal structure of the pyramids, with its complex passages and chambers, might have been designed not just to preserve knowledge, but to teach it to future generations. This interpretation explains why the pyramids seem to be educational rather than purely ceremonial. The ascending passages force visitors to experience the monument in a specific way, leading them through increasingly challenging spaces toward chambers designed for acoustic and consciousness-altering experiences. The precise astronomical alignments serve as a permanent celestial calendar, marking not just the current date, but encoding information about long-term astronomical cycles. The Great Pyramid in particular seems designed to challenge and educate future civilizations. Its internal passages present puzzles that can only be solved with advanced technology. The recently discovered voids can only be explored with sophisticated scanning equipment and robotics. The monument literally evolves its revelations based on the technological capabilities of those investigating it.
Well, I suspect there might be, because it's clearly great lengths were gone to make these places very hard to access. Just like the shaft of the Queen's Chamber that I told you about, which goes, it's like an invitation. It's please investigate me, please explore me, please find out about me.
This might explain why ancient texts speak of the pyramids containing halls of records or hidden chambers with advanced knowledge. Rather than containing scrolls or hieroglyphic texts, the pyramids themselves are the records, three-dimensional libraries encoding mathematical, astronomical, and engineering knowledge in their very structure. The fact that we're only now beginning to fully explore and understand these monuments suggests that they were designed for our time, a period when humanity has developed the technological tools necessary to decode their deeper meanings. This brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects of the pyramid mystery, the role of consciousness and human development in their design and purpose. Ancient Egyptian culture was deeply concerned with the development of human consciousness and the achievement of higher states of awareness. Their entire religious and philosophical system was based on the idea that human consciousness could transcend normal limitations. The pyramid texts, the oldest religious writings known to humanity, describe the pharaoh's journey after death through various trials and challenges, ultimately achieving transformation into a godlike state. But what if these texts weren't describing literal death and afterlife, but the process of consciousness development that took place within the pyramids themselves? The internal structure of the Great Pyramid supports this interpretation. The journey from the entrance through the ascending passage to the Grand Gallery and finally to the King's Chamber parallels the stages of initiation described in ancient texts. Each section presents increasing challenges and requires greater determination to complete.
You're going up hundreds of feet at a slope of 26 degrees. And by the way, that's worth making a point of too, because the external slope of the Great Pyramid is 52 degrees. And every corridor, every passageway within the Great Pyramid slopes at 26 degrees. That's, of course, half of 52. So we know that geometers and mathematicians were at work.
The narrow passages would have created a sense of confinement and challenge, testing the dedication of those seeking to complete the journey. The Grand Gallery, with its soaring corbelled ceiling and precise acoustic properties, would have created a sense of awe and transcendence. The final chamber, with its granite construction and resonant properties, would have provided the setting for whatever transformative experience concluded the initiation process. This isn't just speculation. Similar initiation chambers exist in other ancient cultures around the world. The Oracle of Delphi in Greece operated from a chamber with specific acoustic and possibly consciousness-altering properties. The underground chambers at Newgrange in Ireland are aligned to the winter solstice and create powerful psychological effects on those who enter them during the solstice sunrise. Indigenous cultures around the world have traditions of using specific locations, often caves or constructed chambers, for vision quests and initiation ceremonies. These locations are typically chosen for their acoustic properties, astronomical alignments, or other features that enhance altered states of consciousness. The Great Pyramid might represent the most sophisticated example of this tradition, a consciousness development facility built by a civilization that understood the relationship between environment, acoustics, astronomy, and human consciousness in ways that we're only beginning to appreciate. This interpretation is supported by recent research into the effects of infrasound, sound frequencies below, the range of human hearing on human consciousness. Many ancient sites, including the pyramids, generate infrasound through their acoustic properties. Exposure to specific infrasound frequencies can trigger altered states of consciousness, out-of-body experiences, and profound psychological effects. The Great Pyramid's internal chambers are specifically designed to generate and focus these frequencies. The granite used in construction has piezoelectric properties that convert pressure into electrical current. The entire structure might have functioned as a kind of consciousness-altering machine, using sound, vibration, and electromagnetic fields to induce specific states of awareness in those who underwent the initiation process.
Chris comes to this from a background of machine tool making. When he looks at particularly at Saqqara, you have this thing called the Serapeum. And then he asks himself the question, well, what was the Great Pyramid if it wasn't a tomb? And he's come to the solution that it was some kind of energy generator, some kind of power plant.
This technology wouldn't have required advanced electronics or mechanical devices, just sophisticated understanding of acoustic principles, materials science, and human psychology. It represents a completely different approach to technology than our own, one based on working with natural forces rather than overcoming them through mechanical power. This different approach to technology might explain why we don't find obvious traces of advanced machinery in ancient sites. Instead of building engines and computers, this civilization might have developed techniques for working with consciousness, sound, and natural forces to achieve results that we accomplish through mechanical means. The precision of pyramid construction, the movement of massive stone blocks, the accurate astronomical alignments, all of these might have been achieved through techniques that left no mechanical traces but required sophisticated knowledge of physics, mathematics, and human consciousness. This brings us to one of the most controversial aspects of alternative pyramid theories, the possibility that the builders possessed knowledge and abilities that we consider impossible or supernatural. Ancient traditions from around the world speak of individuals with extraordinary abilities, the power to move objects without physical contact, to perceive distant events, to access information through non-ordinary means.
I think there are latent human abilities which we are not using. Rupert Sheldrake has shown that telepathy is a real thing. What about telekinesis, the ability to move objects with the mind? That sounds like Stephen King territory, but maybe we can do it.
Modern science tends to dismiss these accounts as primitive superstition, but recent research in quantum physics and consciousness studies suggests that the relationship between mind and matter might be more complex than our materialist worldview assumes. Studies of psychokinesis, remote viewing, and other anomalous phenomena provide tantalizing evidence that consciousness might have effects on physical reality that we don't fully understand. What if the pyramid builders understood and could systematically develop these abilities? What if their technology was based not on mechanical devices but on the trained application of human consciousness to physical problems? This would explain many of the mysteries surrounding ancient construction techniques, the movement of massive stone blocks, the precision of cutting and fitting, the accurate astronomical alignments, all could potentially be achieved through the focused application of consciousness-based abilities rather than mechanical technology. The pyramid complex might have served as a training ground for the development of these abilities. The internal passages and chambers could have been designed not just for individual initiation, but for group consciousness work, collaborative applications of focused awareness to achieve specific effects. Ancient texts support this interpretation. Egyptian hieroglyphs describe priests working together to sing massive stone blocks into place. Tibetan traditions speak of monks using concentrated sound and meditation to move heavy objects. These aren't necessarily metaphorical descriptions, but might be literal accounts of consciousness-based technologies. The implications are profound. If accurate, they suggest that human consciousness has capabilities we've forgotten or suppressed in our focus on mechanical technology. The pyramid builders might have achieved their remarkable results, not despite their lack of modern machinery, but because they developed alternative approaches based on understanding the true nature and potential of human consciousness. This perspective also explains why the pyramids seem designed to challenge and educate future civilizations. If they were built by people who understood consciousness as a fundamental force in the universe, they would have recognized that future humanity might lose touch with these abilities and need to rediscover them. The pyramids might represent not just monuments to past achievements, but guidebooks for future development, encoded instructions for rediscovering capabilities that we've forgotten we possess. This interpretation is supported by the growing body of research showing that human consciousness has measurable effects on physical systems. Studies of random number generators show that focused human intention can influence supposedly random processes. Research into the placebo effect demonstrates that belief and expectation can cause real physiological changes. Investigation of meditation and prayer suggests that focused consciousness can affect health, healing, and even distant physical systems. We're beginning to rediscover what the pyramid builders might have known, that consciousness isn't just a byproduct of brain activity, but a fundamental aspect of reality that can influence physical systems in measurable ways. The Great Pyramid, with its precise mathematical relationships to Earth's dimensions, and its sophisticated acoustic and electromagnetic properties, might have been designed as a consciousness amplification device, a tool for focusing and enhancing the natural abilities of human awareness. The recent discoveries of new chambers and passages within the pyramid support this interpretation. Each new revelation seems designed to challenge us to develop better technology and deeper understanding. The monument literally evolves its teachings based on our capabilities, revealing more as we become ready to understand and explore deeper mysteries. This progressive revelation suggests that the pyramid was designed by people who understood learning and development in sophisticated ways. They created a monument that would continue teaching across thousands of years, adapting its lessons to the technological and spiritual development of each generation that encountered it. But the pyramid's educational function extends beyond preserving ancient knowledge. The monument also appears designed to push us toward new discoveries and capabilities. The precision of its construction challenges our understanding of what can be accomplished with supposedly primitive tools. The sophistication of its astronomical alignments requires us to develop better theories about ancient scientific knowledge. The complexity of its internal structure forces us to create new technologies for exploration and analysis. In pushing us to explain its mysteries, the Great Pyramid has driven advances in archaeology, engineering, astronomy, and numerous other fields. It has forced us to question our assumptions about human capabilities and to consider possibilities we might otherwise dismiss. It continues to serve as a catalyst for scientific and technological advancement. This catalytic function might be intentional if the pyramid builders understood that human development is cyclical. With periods of advancement followed by catastrophic setbacks, they would have recognized the need to create monuments that wouldn't just preserve past achievements, but would actively promote future development. The Great Pyramid accomplishes this by presenting us with achievements we can observe but not fully explain. It challenges us to develop better tools, better theories, and better understanding of human potential. It serves as both inspiration and puzzle, demonstrating what human beings can accomplish while challenging us to discover how such accomplishments are possible. This challenge function is particularly important if we accept the possibility that the pyramid builders possessed capabilities that we've lost or forgotten. Rather than simply telling us about these capabilities, the monument demonstrates their results and challenges us to rediscover the means by which they were achieved. The precision of the pyramid's construction suggests mastery of techniques we haven't rediscovered. The sophistication of its astronomical alignments indicates knowledge we're only beginning to appreciate. The complexity of its consciousness-affecting properties points toward understanding of human potential that we're just starting to explore scientifically. By presenting us with the results of these advanced capabilities without revealing the specific techniques involved, the pyramid forces us to develop our own approaches to achieving similar results. We can't simply copy ancient methods. We have to understand the underlying principles and develop our own applications. This approach ensures that we don't just recover ancient knowledge, but advance beyond it. Each generation that studies the pyramid is challenged to exceed previous understanding, creating a progressive development that builds on ancient foundations while reaching toward new achievements. The pyramid's role as both preserver of ancient wisdom and catalyst for future development reflects a sophisticated understanding of how knowledge and capability are transmitted across time. The builders seem to have recognized that simply preserving information isn't sufficient. Each generation must actively engage with and build upon inherited knowledge to prevent stagnation and decline. This dynamic approach to knowledge preservation might be one of the most important lessons the pyramid has to teach us. In our own time, when human knowledge and capability are advancing at unprecedented rates, we need to consider how to ensure that future generations will be able to build on our achievements rather than simply inheriting static information. The pyramid suggests that the key lies in creating challenges and puzzles that force each generation to actively engage with inherited knowledge and push beyond previous limitations. Rather than simply passing on facts and techniques, we need to pass on the drive to understand, explore, and transcend current capabilities. This lesson is particularly relevant as we face our own potential catastrophic challenges: climate change, nuclear weapons, asteroid impacts, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering. All of these represent potential threats to human civilization. If we're going to survive and thrive through these challenges, we need not just technical solutions, but the wisdom to use our capabilities responsibly and the resilience to recover from setbacks. The pyramid builders faced similar challenges and apparently found ways to preserve crucial knowledge and capabilities through catastrophic periods. Their approach, encoding wisdom in durable monuments designed to educate and challenge future generations, might provide a model for our own efforts to ensure the long-term survival and development of human civilization. The Great Pyramid stands as proof that human consciousness and capability can transcend the apparent limitations of any particular historical period. It demonstrates that with sufficient understanding and determination, human beings can create works that inspire and educate across vast spans of time. It shows us that our current limitations are not absolute boundaries, but challenges to be overcome through greater understanding and development. As we continue to study and explore the pyramid, we're not just investigating an ancient monument, we're participating in an educational process that has been unfolding for thousands of years. Each new discovery, each new insight, each new technology we develop in response to the pyramid's challenges advances human understanding and capability. The monument serves as a bridge between past and future, connecting us to ancient wisdom while pointing us toward new possibilities. It reminds us that human achievement is not limited to any particular era, but is an ongoing process of discovery, development, and transcendence. The mystery of how the pyramids were built is ultimately less important than the question of why they continue to inspire and challenge us. The monument's greatest achievement isn't its demonstration of ancient capabilities, but its ongoing role in promoting human development and aspiration. The Great Pyramid asks us to consider what human beings might accomplish when we fully understand our potential and apply that understanding with wisdom and determination. It challenges us to exceed not just ancient achievements, but our own current limitations. It invites us to participate in the ongoing evolution of human consciousness and capability. Standing before the Great Pyramid today, we're faced with a choice. We can view it as an impressive but ultimately irrelevant relic of the past, or we can accept its challenge to transcend our current understanding and achieve new levels of human development. We can dismiss its mysteries as unsolvable puzzles, or we can use them as catalysts for advancing our knowledge and capabilities. The pyramid's builders seem to have anticipated this choice and designed their monument to reward those who accept the challenge of growth and development. The deeper we investigate, the more complex and rewarding the mysteries become. The more we push the boundaries of our understanding, the more the monument reveals about both ancient capabilities and future possibilities. This progressive revelation suggests that the pyramid's ultimate secret isn't a hidden chamber or ancient artifact, but the recognition that human potential is far greater than we typically imagine. The monument's true treasure isn't gold or precious stones, but the knowledge that consciousness, properly developed and applied, can accomplish seemingly impossible things. The pyramid builders achieved something that still challenges our understanding after thousands of years of study. They created a work that continues to educate and inspire generation after generation. They demonstrated that human consciousness and capability can transcend the apparent limitations of any particular historical period. Their achievement wasn't just in moving massive stones or calculating complex astronomical relationships. Their greatest accomplishment was creating a monument that would continue pushing human development forward across millennia, serving as both inspiration and challenge for countless future generations. As we stand at the threshold of new scientific and technological capabilities, the pyramid's message becomes increasingly relevant. We're developing tools that could allow us to explore consciousness, manipulate matter, and transcend current limitations in ways that would have seemed miraculous to previous generations. The question is whether whether we'll use these capabilities wisely and responsibly. The pyramid builders faced similar choices with their advanced capabilities. Their monument suggests they chose to use their knowledge not for conquest or domination, but for education and the advancement of human potential. They created works designed to inspire and challenge rather than intimidate and control. Their example points toward a path of development that emphasizes wisdom, responsibility, and service to future generations. Rather than using advanced capabilities for short-term gain, they invested in long-term projects that would continue benefiting humanity across vast spans of time. This long-term perspective is perhaps the most important lesson the Great Pyramid has to offer. In our current era of rapid change and short-term thinking, the monument reminds us of the value of projects that transcend individual lifetimes and serve the long-term development of human consciousness and capability. The pyramid builders weren't just preserving their own achievements, they were investing in the future of human civilization. They created a monument that would continue teaching and inspiring long after their own culture had passed into history. Their work wasn't completed when the last stone was set in place, but continues every time someone stands before their creation and is moved to push beyond current limitations. This ongoing completion of their work through our engagement with it represents a profound understanding of how knowledge and inspiration are transmitted across time. The builders seem to have recognized that true achievement isn't just in creating impressive objects, but in inspiring others to achieve even greater things. The Great Pyramid's ultimate message may be that human potential is unlimited when consciousness is properly developed and applied with wisdom and dedication. The monument stands as proof that such potential can be realized and as a challenge for us to realize it ourselves. It connects us to a tradition of achievement that transcends any particular historical period and points toward possibilities that we're only beginning to imagine. As we continue to unlock the pyramid's mysteries, we're not just solving ancient puzzles, we're participating in the ongoing evolution of human understanding and capability. Each discovery brings us closer to comprehending what the builders achieved and how they achieved it. More importantly, each step forward in our understanding opens new possibilities for our own development and achievement. The Great Pyramid doesn't just preserve the past or predict the future, it actively participates in creating that future by challenging each generation to exceed previous achievements and realize greater human potential. It stands as both monument to ancient accomplishment and blueprint for future development, connecting us to a tradition of human achievement that spans millennia and pointing us toward possibilities that transcend our current limitations. In the end, the greatest mystery of the Great Pyramid may not be how it was built, but why it continues to inspire and challenge us. The builders' ultimate accomplishment wasn't creating an impressive stone structure, but creating a catalyst for ongoing human development that continues to function thousands of years after their civilization has passed into history. Their work reminds us that the highest human achievements aren't just impressive demonstrations of capability, but gifts to future generations that continue giving long after their creators are gone. The Great Pyramid challenges us to create our own lasting contributions to human knowledge and development, ensuring that the tradition of growth and achievement it represents continues into the future. This is perhaps the pyramid's most profound teaching, that human greatness isn't measured just by what we accomplish in our own time, but by how our achievements continue to inspire and enable others to reach even greater heights. The monument stands as both achievement and aspiration, connecting us to the best of our past while challenging us to create an even better future. The Great Pyramid will never truly be completely understood because it wasn't designed to be a static object of study, but a dynamic catalyst for ongoing human development. Its mysteries evolve as we evolve, always offering new challenges and insights appropriate to our current level of development. It grows with us, ensuring that each generation finds in it exactly the inspiration and challenge needed to push beyond current limitations and achieve new levels of human potential. This is why you'll never look at the pyramids the same way after understanding their true nature and purpose. They're not just ancient monuments or unsolved mysteries. They're active participants in human development, continuing to fulfill their builders' intention of promoting the advancement of human consciousness and capability across the vast spans of time. They remind us that we're part of a story much larger and more magnificent than we typically imagine, and they challenge us to play our part in that story with wisdom, courage, and dedication to the highest human potential.